Welcome today. I'm excited to have everyone here. My name is Megan Hegarty, and I am the Assistant Director for Education in the annual conference here at NODA. I also grew up professionally in advising, so I have been a volunteer leader in NACADA for many years and am the incoming chair for the Emerging Leaders Program with that organization. So this is sort of a marriage of my two professional worlds, which is very exciting for me. I am here today mostly to introduce you to our two executive directors who are with us to give you the official welcome. So I would like to introduce both Joyce Holl, the executive director of NODA, as well as Charlie Nutt, the executive director of NACADA.
Hi everyone, on behalf of NODA, I'm happy to welcome you to this joint webinar between NODA and NACADA. I'm looking forward to the panel presentation as we hear more about the important connection between orientation, transition, retention, and academic advising. I want to thank NACADA for collaborating with us and look forward to our continued partnership. With that, I'll turn it over to Charlie Nutt.
Thank you, Joyce, and thanks everyone for being here. Joyce, this is a great opportunity for NODA and NACADA to partner, and I look forward to a lot more opportunities for us to do so as well. Let me thank Sean and Megan, Sean from NACADA, and Megan from NODA for coordinating all of this and getting our excellent panelists here. But thank all 500 of you who are here. This is just exciting. I think it clearly shows the importance of this topic. But I hope even more so it shows the importance of the partnership between NODA and NACADA, that we can continue to expand those. So Joyce, great to see you. Thank you for allowing us to be a partner in this. And I'm going to turn it back over to Megan and Sean.
Thank you, Charlie. My name is Sean Bridgen. I am the Associate Director for External and Institutional Partnerships at NACADA, the Global Community for Academic Advising. And I am going to introduce our first panelist, who is Dawn Coder from Penn State. I will be moderating this discussion as well.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining us. I am Dawn Coder. I'm the Senior Director of Academic Advising and Student Disability Services at
It looks like Dawn has frozen, so can we pass it over to Holly?
Hi everyone, I'm Holly Williams. I serve as the Director of Student Success and Academic Advising at Alvin Community College, which is a 2-year school in Texas.
And next we'll have Abby introduce herself. I think you're muted, Abby.
Let's try that again. All right, technology, which is what we're talking about today. So hello again, everyone. I am so thrilled to be here with you all today. My name is Abby Wolfman. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Advising for the Krannert School of Management at Purdue University, West Lafayette. And I'm just so thrilled to be
right, and when you download it, that's the important part. Can you download it to your computer and then?
Great, thank you very much, Abby. And the next person is Sarah.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those of you on the East Coast, we're just having all sorts of technical challenges this morning. It must be a Monday. My name is Sarah Howard. I work at The Ohio State University in the centralized office that supports undergraduate advising, and my role helps to support training and technology use for advisors across all 6 campuses.
Wonderful. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And the first question is going to go to Dawn, and I think she's back with us now. I see her moving around. Dawn, can you say something to make sure we can hear you?
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Sorry about that. I'm having a little bit of instability for my internet, so I may need to call in.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Thank you so much.
Great.
So I think the first question is for you. So the first question we wanted to discuss is, what are the biggest differences between online and face-to-face advising?
Yes, thank you, Sean. So in many ways, virtual advising requires the same foundational skills as face-to-face advising. It is important to build relationships, provide resources, and partner with others to offer referrals to students. But there are 4 main takeaways I'd like for you to consider when advising virtually. The first consideration is to recognize the differences that students will experience. Unless you are advising through technology such as Zoom, your advisees cannot get instant answers, and clear expectations may not be available. For example, for questions that are not time sensitive, as an advisor, you may consider a response within 2 to 3 business days as appropriate. A student, however, who typically may use drop-in hours that you provide, may expect a response within a day or within hours for time-sensitive questions. It is important to provide clear expectations for responses, and it is very important to let students know when you will not be in the office, which could delay a response. As you all know, email does not stop, and so that student might end up sending you an email after email after email if they think that they are not getting a response in a timely manner. The second consideration is communication. Think about a time when you've received an email that made you stop for a minute because you felt a tone from the person writing the message. If you are a direct communicator and typically advise face-to-face, you have your body language to soften your communication and the student's body language to indicate how they have received the message you've provided. A smile on your face, open arms as an invitation, or a care of concern goes a long way that sometimes you don't have in the virtual world. When communicating virtually, even through a virtual technology, an open environment doesn't always come through. Consider using what I call niceties in your communications to start the relationship off positively. Ask about the weather. Start off with a question related to a family situation they've previously shared with you, or share something personal that you've done. Have you recently taken a staycation? That's where we're at, right? For example, we'll share it, talk about it. Another consideration is to write your response first and then go back and reread it before sending it. If you're in a hurry because you have 100 emails waiting for you that need answered, it's very easy to miss the unintentional rush tone you may present in the email. The third consideration is also communication, but in a different context. Many times when we are meeting with students, we ask general questions such as, how are you? Or how are your classes this semester? But with our current state of COVID, it is important to dig deeper into those questions, and especially when building relationships virtually. If receiving a response of classes are fine, thank you, consider asking additional questions such as, are you struggling in any of the material, or do you find the topics are what you expected with the degree program you've chosen? The reason I ask you to consider going deeper is this format, within the virtual format, it's easy for many of us to hide behind the technology and to provide expected answers. Asking follow-up questions shows you care, and it follows the appreciative advising that supports an inviting demeanor. Students who feel more comfortable with us will reach out, hopefully before there are major issues, so we can assist. Building advising relationships virtually takes a different type of approach because we are not in the same space as our students. So consider delving deeper into those surface questions so that we can provide an open, inviting virtual environment. And the last takeaway I'll ask you to consider is a positive one. Many times when you are in a face-to-face environment, you do not have the ability to see certain skills, or there may be hesitation with sharing information when sitting across from someone. In virtual advising, we can see if there are deficiencies in certain skills, such as writing, or a student might be able to share a situation in writing that he or she may not feel comfortable doing so in a conversation. This allows us as advisors to provide additional resources with students that we may not have known or needed when advising face-to-face. So I just wanted to draw your attention to this quote that we have listed on the PowerPoint, because it's truly an important thing to consider, that when you think about it, those 30 minutes that you have with that student, or maybe even 10 minutes if you're responding by email, does have the potential to positively impact students, regardless if you're face-to-face or in the virtual environment, building those relationships that really could impact advisees for many years to come. So thank you, and I'll send that back to Sean.
Thank you so much, Dawn. It's very, very insightful information. I don't know if the participants have heard your role. Do you want to share that role so they understand where you're coming from? I'm not sure if that was, I think you may have cut off.
Oh, yes. So I'm the Senior Director of Academic Advising and Student Disability Services for the Penn State World Campus, which is the virtual campus of Penn State. And I've been there for about 10 years, and I work on a team of about 64.
Thank you, Dawn. I just thought it was important that they know this is your full-time job 100% of the time for many years that you've been doing this sort of advising. So thank you so much for your answers. Any of the other panelists, do you have anything you wanted to add to what Dawn had? Okay, we will go on to the next question. The next question is, how can advisors, starting from or before the time of orientation, build strong advising relationships virtually? And I believe Holly is going to field this question.
Yes, thank you, Sean. Again, my name is Holly Williams, and I'm coming from a two-year school in Texas, Alvin Community College. So I want to take this from kind of three parts. Dawn really focused on some of the nitty-gritty, if you will. And so I want to talk a little bit more about the relationships between departments on campus and how that will help facilitate positive student advisor connections and relationships. We know that a strong start for a new student is contingent upon the student feeling connected and engaged to the institution. And online students are maybe even especially vulnerable to feelings of being unaware, confused, and maybe even detached. And so building a productive and meaningful student advisor relationship within a virtual realm is even more important. But it's not based on completing a checklist of to-do items, for example. It's more focused, or should be more focused, on the relational aspect of academic advising. And this type of relationship is key to supporting long-term retention and success for our students. So when building strong advising relationships virtually, I recommend focusing on 3 C's: collaboration, communication, and connection. Cross-departmental collaboration is essential when providing a smooth onboarding and enrollment experience for our students. Incorporating academic advising into orientation facilitates relationship building and resource sharing. And it's important that teams determine what shared goals are across departments, discuss and define clear expectations, and then also ensure that leaders are in the loop. First-year students in particular need assistance simply understanding the process: orientation, advising, registration. A recommendation might be to have something like a transition facilitator, perhaps a peer leader or orientation leader who can help students direct and navigate from task to task or even department to department, and help provide a more cohesive and seamless experience. Basically, someone who can offer a firsthand perspective on the importance of building the student advisor relationship. The step 2, if you will, is in regard to communication. And the virtual world does provide a lot of wonderful opportunities for streamlining efforts and in more in-time communication. So in proactive distance advising, the advisor initiates contact with online students. Don't wait for them to come to you. Reach out and engage. Furthermore, some institutions have thrown out the old belief that students may be overwhelmed by too much or too frequent communication, as numerous single inquiries result in individual responses that may be better handled by an automated email, text, or even phone call in some instances. So touch point and follow-up communications help to break down confusion and close the enrollment loop. And finally, connection is key. Building rapport with online students is essential. Being willing to ask questions that get them to open up a little bit. Dawn did a great job of suggesting things like, let me tell you what I did on my vacation. It may sound arbitrary, but it's a really great way to kind of break the ice and start building that rapport with students. In some cases, we might even recommend offering a more relaxed or informal setting to facilitate conversation. Distance advising may warrant a more intentional or even intrusive approach. Academic advisors may be accustomed to less hand-holding, for example, at your institution, but a distance advising relationship encourages and even requires more opportunities for connection. Consistent engagement will create the environment where students feel safe to ask questions and seek clarity and assistance as they need it. In conclusion, technology is a tool that facilitates human interaction, but it does not guarantee meaningful connection. And the onus is really on the advisor to empower students' autonomy while remaining available for guidance and support as needed.
Thank you, Holly. And we have a question that came in from an attendee. They would like to know, has anyone conducted virtual office hours where students can essentially, quote, walk in for advising needs? If so, what platforms were used? What challenges did you encounter? Was it a good experience? And would you recommend this connection strategy? Somebody have some comments on that question?
Hi, Sean. I'd be happy to comment a little bit. So we do not generally have virtual hours at Penn State World Campus, but what we did try once, and honestly, it wasn't that popular with students. We actually had students who would call into our general advising line, and we would have specific people available to work in a Zoom room, where we would have those who are on our phone system, our frontline staff, transfer the student into the Zoom room to have a conversation with an academic advisor. So it was similar to a walk-in, but when most folks who called in on that general advising line had a general question that could be answered at that point in time. And so it was something that it didn't tend to be that popular, but it's something that we want to do a little bit more so in the future, and really focus on specific areas and specific degree programs with advisors who advise those programs. So it wasn't something that worked well at first, but I think we want to take a different approach to it in the future and try it once again.
So I'd also offer a perspective, maybe a 2-year perspective. We are offering right now during what we consider peak registration. So in the community college setting, as it gets closer to the start of classes, we have too many students that need assistance in order to facilitate appointments. So we are hosting a Zoom virtual lobby where students can request to join the lobby, and then it's basically first come, first serve, and students are able to meet with an advisor in that format.
Thank you all very much. And we actually have another question that I think this would be a good time to answer that. One of the attendees would like to know if there is an alternative for online advising if students don't have the bandwidth for Zoom video screen sharing capabilities. Does anybody have any tips for that type of situation?
I can chime in, Sean. So we asked students what format they would be most comfortable to meet with, knowing that some of them don't have a strong internet connection. And I'll be honest, sometimes a good old phone call will work with the student. So just taking it back old school, but that's been really effective for a lot of our staff.
Thank you so much. And I think just in the interest of time, we'll move on to the third question. We still have some great questions coming in here I think we can answer towards the end if we have time. Question number 3 is, what are some promising practices for leveraging technology to obtain work efficiencies during busy times? Very important as we are in this new environment for sure.
Yeah, so I will take that question on. In general, and kind of the that you've heard so far in both Dawn and Holly's responses to the first 2 questions, are communication. I think as advisors, we tend to have a sense of what the academic year is going to feel like. We know when registration times are going to come up. We know when drop ad periods end. We know when petition deadlines are approaching. And so we need to use that to our benefit to communicate proactively with the students, especially if they're new to the university, whether they're a transfer student or a new first-year student. We really need to not expect that they know what that pattern feels like and be proactive in how we're reaching out. So I would recommend kind of evaluating what tools do you have available to you. Most departments probably have a website. In the past, we've used websites a lot for very static information, things that are not going to change over time. But you might think creatively about, can you add a banner to the top of your website that draws attention to an important date or upcoming deadline? Can you add a new page that only is available at certain times of year that provides more timely information for your students. So that's one way to think about the website that you might have available. Some advisors may have access to create their own page or group within their learning management system on your campus. And so that would be a way to think proactively about flipping the advising relationship, having students complete or read some information before the appointment so that they're better prepared when you do have that time set aside for individual appointment. Sometimes too, learning management systems are a little bit easier to update than websites. And so there are numerous examples of institutions where they provide just kind of key updates or maybe even weekly newsletters through a learning management system that all of their students are loaded into. That way you can also check to see who has access to that information and maybe follow up with those who haven't done so already. Also, I know we talk a lot about how students don't necessarily read their emails thoroughly, but I think email is still a really effective tool and students still expect to be getting emails about critical university or institution business. And so thinking about how can you proactively let your students know when they should be thinking about scheduling an appointment, or even going a step further and setting aside certain times where maybe you're having your graduating seniors schedule during a certain period of the semester, or maybe you're having your new first year students come in at certain times based on their major. Even with those email messages, one of the ways that you can achieve a little bit more efficiency is using, I use Outlook, and so I've created a bunch of email rules that help filter my email in certain folders. I also use things like quick parts and quick text that allow me to have sort of a canned response, but then I can go back and personalize it more to the student. And that way the students feel like I'm responding to them as an individual person. I'm not just giving them kind of the cookie cutter response, but sometimes things like, how do I request a transcript, do require a cookie cutter response. And so it's okay to just send that message really quickly and move that email out of your inbox. I also think it would be useful to have some information about how students interact with the tools that you have available. And so do students have access to go back and look at the advising notes that you've taken after an appointment? And if so, how do they get there? And how can you help educate those students who might not know that those are available as a tool? Because how many times has a student walked out of your office and sent an email saying, I don't remember what we talked about. Can you tell me what that class was again? And so if they have access to those tools, how do they get to them? Same thing with the learning management system. How are students accustomed to using that space? And how can you use that to the benefit of the advising relationship? I know oftentimes within our office, somebody will say, hey, I saw on the subreddit page for our institution that students are asking about this. And sometimes they're getting good advice from their peers and sometimes they're not. But so could you recreate that space using a discussion board in your learning management system where perhaps advisors are tasked with checking what discussion questions are coming in and responding with information that you know is accurate. So there's a lot of ways that you can use the tools that are available, but the key thing is thinking about how you're planning to communicate and when, because as both Holly and Dawn said, that communication component is key, especially when you may or may not be seeing those students face to face in your building or in your office.
Thank you. That was really insightful. Are there other panelists who would like to comment on this? Anything that you would like to add? Not at this point. Okay, great. We have a number of really great questions coming in here, and do any of the panelists want to take any of these? Some of them it feels like they might be better answered at the end. Okay, great. We will continue on then, and we'll move on to the next question. But thank you all for posting these amazing questions. Keep them coming. We want to make sure we can address them. All right, so question number 4. How can we welcome, engage, and support first-year students who will spend their first semester entirely in an online environment? Of course, there may be folks like in Dawn's case when they expect to do that because it's a rural campus, but there are others who students were not expecting to be able to spend their first year online. So I believe that Abby is going to answer this one.
Yes, thanks, Sean. Hi again,
Thank you.
everyone. I'm Abby Wolfman, the director of the Krannert Undergraduate Advising Office at the Krannert School of Management at Purdue. But prior to my role at Purdue, I spent about, 13 years working with orientation and transition programs. So this question really spoke to me from a lot of different perspectives. So as we look at the fall semester, we're in a really unique situation depending on the campus that you're at. So some campuses are going to be completely online. So how you approach working with first year students would be the same for all first year students. But then you might have a situation like we do here at Purdue, where we have primarily our students will be here in person, but then we have this subset of our first year students that are going to be online. So it's different how we approach that. So in the Krannert School, for instance, we have about 96 of our 500 new students who are going to be online. So the information and how that we give those students, how we help them feel connected to our community, how we help them in their transition might look a little bit different. So, I think though, regardless of how our students are starting this fall, whether it's online, hybrid, primarily residential, whatever it may be, first year students are still first year students. They still want all the same information. That's one thing I learned with our summer advising appointments this summer, that they still had all those same questions, and maybe they had one or two questions about what the COVID situation might be on campus, but a majority of them didn't even ask. They just wanted to know when they get to move in or what it's going to look like when they come in the spring, since they're doing the fall online. So I find that behavior of our first year students just reassuring that it never really changes, right? So for us, though, I think as we look at working with our online students, similar to what Sarah had said, how can we embrace the technology platforms that we have at our disposal? And, I think with that technology as well, we have a very captive audience. They are online all day. I don't know about all of you, but my emails have never been more busy ever. And then they're asking multiple questions at the same time. They'll send one thought and another thought, like our email is instant messenger, but they're a captive audience. And so how can we embrace them being there? So, when we think about their needs of first year students, they want to build community. So how can we use technology, like Sarah said, how can we embrace technology to help support this need for our first year students? So certainly orientation and welcome week programs play an important role, and I hope at your campus that there's some sort of programming that's going to be happening for online students as a way to get them connected and engaged. They can still do online small groups with orientation leaders, and that they can meet their peers. I think this is a fantastic way for students to get engaged to other students who may also be online. I also think the platform, similar to what Sarah said, allows us to maybe have our orientation leaders or peer mentors work with those students in that small group throughout the semester in a way that maybe wouldn't happen if we were all in person. Also, similar, the students want to form that community, so they're going to find it online if we don't provide a platform for them. So they're going to go to subreddit, for example. But is there a way, again, that we can make that platform work for us, whether that's a discussion board in an LMS system? Looking at maybe Discord, that's another platform I guess the kids are using these days as a way to stay connected and engaged. Or again, how do you leverage your LMS system? So at the Krannert School, for instance, we're going to be creating our own Brightspace page for our new students, where every week we're going to release a new module and a way to engage a student based on where they may be developmentally that first year, based on what their needs might be. And so that will help us stay connected to them, help them be informed of what's going on in a timely manner, but then also help them build a community within that platform too. It's important for first year students that are online is to make sure they're engaged in all the resources and services. So does your campus have one place where the students can find this? Prior to this presentation, I was looking online at some of our campus partners or our other campus or other campuses around the United States, what their websites look like. And we've got a pretty solid group of campuses out there that have a lot of information online, but making sure that your school has a central place that we can send students where all that information is. Because what is the counseling center going to be doing? Do they have virtual appointments for students that they can participate in, or academic support services or tutoring? where is all of that information that the students can access really quickly, where they don't have to dig through a website to be able to find it. Thinking about, like, again, e-newsletters, how you leverage your LMS system, and then again, how to centralize the communication if you do take the option of doing email newsletters. You know, email fatigue is real for me, and I imagine it's very real for our students too. So I like the idea of newsletters because you can bundle that information together and send it out maybe a couple times a week as opposed to multiple emails through the day that the students sometimes get lost in. Students are still going to want to be involved in student life. So what does that look like if they're entirely online? So it's, again, working with our student groups and organizations to make sure they're not forgetting about that population. If you have a campus that's doing primarily residential or hybrid, that the student leaders are considering that population and how they do recruitment, how they do events, how they do panels, so that those students don't feel left out. Because I feel like that's the biggest thing that our students who are online this semester may feel, is they may feel left out of everything that's happening on campus. So finding ways to include them in the conversation and call outs, meetings, all of that I think is really important and critical. You know, they'll still want to make sure they're connected with us. One of my other panelists already discussed this, but you know, if your campus doesn't require in-person advising meetings, maybe for our first year students this year, they consider doing that are online. Knowing that important touch point is so key for these students' success and transition and retention. It's harder when they're not here on campus. So how can we do that potentially online and maybe look at requiring that appointment? I also am a big fan of any kind of orientation course that you might be able to enroll students in. At the Granite School, for instance, our new students will be enrolled in an Introduction to Management course, even if they're online, to make sure, again, that they're getting connected to the Granite School. And finally, mentoring, and I think mentoring can play a really cool role in this online environment because that captive audience really exists. So how do we leverage our relationships with faculty, alumni, other students, staff, to help students feel connected? And throughout this whole process, you know, encouraging creativity. You know, I was telling my staff the other day that what we're doing now to engage this population may serve us well down the road for all of our students in the future. So, you know, I think keeping that perspective will be important as we look at this first semester completely online for some of our students. I'll turn it back to you, Sean.
Thank you so much. There are just a bunch of awesome questions coming in, and here's one that I think we can address relatively quickly, if I can find it again. Yes, Laurie Hughes is asking, when building relationships virtually, you need to focus on the 3 C's. Laurie got the first of the 2 C's, and communication and connection, but wanted to review the first one. Can you please review that? I believe that was for Holly.
I'm sorry, Sean, what was the question again?
Oh, that's okay. When building relationships virtually, you need to focus on the 3 C's. Laurie heard the first 2, communication and connection, but doesn't know she got 2 of the 3, communication and connection, but didn't hear the first one.
Oh, collaboration.
Collaboration.
So that was in regard to departments working together to make sure that the enrollment process is smooth and understandable for students.
Great, thank you very much for clarifying that, Holly. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that at this point?
I don't think so, but I do think there's some good questions coming down the pipeline. Yeah,
it's really great ones. I'm going to kind of try to get these in order. Cynthia is asking for some tips on maintaining confidential conversations during the meetings by video. And do any of you have any tips for this you can share?
I can go ahead and tackle that one. I think in the virtual environment, and probably what a lot of you all have experienced, is that while you might see one face in the camera, you might assume that there's maybe another person off camera. And so one way to address that would be just to start out in the open with the appointment and say, you know, is there anybody else joining you in your room today? Do you feel comfortable having this conversation about your academic record with that person in the space? And that invites the parent, family member, support person, whomever into the conversation, so that it's not an awkward, I know there's somebody feeding questions off screen. And I think for the most part, students are, at this point in time, if you're talking about enrollment, if you're talking about course changes based on new information or changing information at your institution, I think for the most part, students have been perfectly fine having that conversation with the parent or family member in the room. Certainly, if you know that the conversation will involve more sensitive subjects, then again, just making that oral verification. You also may have a process through your student information system where students can opt in or opt out of sharing FERPA protected information, or might be able to designate a specific person that they're always willing to have that information shared with. And so I don't think it's that different than if you were to walk out into a physical lobby space and see that the student has brought a guest with them. You still would make that same, are you comfortable having this conversation? But you just have to maybe be a little bit more upfront so that you know that that's something that we have to take into consideration as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there other tips that panelists would like to add? It looks like Dawn just unmuted. Maybe she has something.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I just wanted to say on the opposite end. So as we are also working from home, the majority of us are working from home, it's also important for us to have private space so that we're not sharing confidential information with those we live with. On the flip side of that, you know, if you're also in charge of childcare while you're meeting, that might be something that you might want to say to the student. You know, at this point in time, I don't have childcare. My daughter is 3. Is it okay if she's in the room with us while we are talking? You know, that sort of thing. I know it sounds silly, but it's better to get the okay from the advisee rather than just assume that the person will be okay with someone else being in the room. So really having private space, ensuring that whatever documentation you're sharing on the screen, others in your household cannot see, and you're maintaining that confidentiality on your end as well.
That's really helpful, Dawn. Thank you, because we know that trust in the advising relationship is so very important, and that's a great way to try to convey that feeling and that sentiment during a virtual meeting. Thank you. Are there other comments? Okay, I will move on to the next question then. This one is from Sonia Gonzalez. How do you think, how long is an appropriate amount of time for a virtual advising appointment? This gets to that efficiency and effectiveness type of discussion we were on to earlier. Sonia says they try to allow for an hour for technical issues and new students with lots of questions, but with a limited number of advisors on staff, it's hard to reach everyone. Any tips for dealing with this kind of combination of being effective in building relationships, but also dealing with the efficiency and the demands of having lots of students who need help?
So I can start if others want to share as well. And I'll ask my panelists, have you ever done anything like the quick advising appointments that go boom, boom, boom really quickly? So the 10-minute dating app that you go through in the fun world. But anyway, so there are ways that, hopefully you have technology, we have technology, there are ways that you can identify specific advising appointments that make it much easier to be able to handle, you know, everything that's in demand for the day as an academic advisor. So if it's something like, okay, registration is coming up, you know that you will have many students reaching out to you about scheduling for classes, one of the ways that you can have a quicker appointment, because it's really focused on the class discussion, is ask the student to send you a schedule prior to meeting with the student. And that way you already have a start that you can discuss, and it can be a quicker conversation. The longer advising appointments should be exactly what the person had listed here, where you know, maybe the student is in academic warning or suspension or academic recovery probation, and you really want to have those in-depth conversations. So if you're able to identify the type of appointment so that you don't get the easy scheduling type of appointment in an hour time block, but you really have like a 15-minute time block where you just need to talk with the student about scheduling. It really does help in terms of what is needed for those advising appointments. The other piece of this, and there was another question related to this about group advising. I am an advocate for group advising, although I know some folks are not, but in a way that is does not break confidentiality. And so if you're able to host group advising sessions that are very general in that they specific have topics like, for example, it's registration time and I don't know how to register, or how do I start off my semester successfully? What do I need to know? Maybe there's technology that that students tend to ask the same questions over and over again. So if they are general questions that you know students are asking, instead of taking that schedule time, just have a group advising session, invite others in, and have the discussion around that topic. You will get students who ask you individual questions, and that's when you would just refer them to have an individual appointment with you. But we do this at Penn State World Campus, and I can share with you the first time we ever did the Start Your Semester Off Successfully, we had 200 students come in. They were all new students, and we answered 119 unique questions. So if you think about 119 questions that might have been asked by 3 different students at 3 different times, you really ended up saving a lot of time just by hosting a group advising session. And so those are just a few items that, that we do in order to help with capacity.
Thank you.
I'll add on to that. Yeah, so at Ohio State this summer, we worked with the orientation staff and developed 6 advising specific videos about what's the structure of a semester, how do I understand the general education requirements, how do I use the schedule planner tool that we have available, and we made those available for all advising units to use. And what some of the units also then went on to create their own specific content that they had students engage with prior to their orientation appointment. And so in terms of the question about how long, generally for orientation, advisors were ranging anywhere from a 15-minute conversation to a 30-minute conversation when they were in person. And so the fear was, how do we manage this when we're online and we're all dealing with new technology? Well, generally what a lot of the advisors across campuses, across units found was that by providing the information to the students ahead of time in a way that they can engage with on their own, they were coming better prepared for those appointments. So they had a more specific plan as to what classes they were thinking about taking, like Dawn had said. They had better questions because they were able to engage with the material ahead of time. And so while a lot of the units moved to 30 or 45-minute appointments, they still were finding that 30 minutes was generally okay because students had done pre-work. Like Dawn said, if your technology has the ability to differentiate between, a very quick question that might only be a 15-minute need versus an hour-long need, that's certainly useful. But the nature of the advising relationship, even though it's online and there's technology, different technology involved, you still know generally how to lead an appointment, and you can control, can we build a relationship and answer the students' questions in 30 minutes, or will we need longer? And so you have to balance out your staffing needs with your time, and just trust that the advisors will do the work that they need to do to build that relationship, build the trust, and get the students' questions answered in the amount of time that you have available.
Thank you, Sarah. And I also, kind of hesitate to add to this, but there's something I know about that I think folks might be interested in, and it just relates to a question earlier about LMSs that came into the chat here, or into the question, the Q&A pod. Another way to build capacity by using your LMS is to employ what George Steele has termed as flipped advising. And George has created a number of free videos on YouTube. George Steele, S-T-E-E-L-E. You can just search him on YouTube and you'll find his flipped advising videos. And there's also a free article in the NACADA Clearinghouse about flipped advising. I know that many universities are starting to use that, and they're finding it very helpful in this area to like Sarah was talking about, having students get better prepared so that you can be more efficient and have kind of more in-depth conversations during your appointments. So, just thought that might be helpful too. We have another question here. This one is from Tamara. So what are some of the strategies you've executed to reach students who have been non-responsive? For example, they haven't answered emails, calls, or texts during these virtual times. This is something that I know that advisors always have lurking in their hearts. So what about the students we're not hearing from? So I'd like to throw that out to the panelists for comment.
It really depends on the campus, what strategies might be in place. So we had when the fall or the spring semester, about mid-spring semester, there was a centralized effort at Purdue to reach out to students who hadn't been logging on to their LMS system or engaging in class at all. So it was a centralized effort. And then they coordinated with the advising colleges and the advisors so that we would follow up with those students who weren't responding at all via text or via email. And what we found is that most of the time our students will respond to us. If it's an advisor that they have a relationship with, they're more likely to respond to us and just say, yeah, everything was okay. I just couldn't figure out how to make this work. But there were those students that weren't responding at all. So the university itself then went ahead and started calling those students. And I know that's not possible at every campus, but we wanted to make sure that the students were in a place where they could finish their spring classes successfully. So that was an investment that Purdue had made in doing. So I think we all struggle with that. And so there's no real cookie cutter solution, but I think for us, relying on those relationships, I think that's where they're key. If they know us, they're more likely, hopefully, to respond to us to let us know that things are going okay or they're not going okay.
I think too, it's important to just consider, what is your concern? So are you concerned because you haven't heard anything from them and you know historically this student has struggled with things, or are you just concerned because you don't know what's going on? And kind of looking for those indicators. Do you have an early alert system? Is that why you have concern? So I think many of us, even as professionals, are struggling with, like, I just feel like I'm talking to people and I'm looking at screens and I'm picking up my phone constantly. And so students might also be feeling overwhelmed by all that. And as long as you feel like I've done my best effort, there's no indicator that this student is in harm or potentially like engaging in concerning behaviors at the moment, give them a little bit of time. I think we all need to have a little bit of grace too, and understanding that everybody has a lot of stuff going on right now. Nobody's ever lived through a pandemic before. And so as long as you feel like the student is safe and can connect when they feel comfortable, then maybe consider, like, I've tried multiple methods of outreach, I've gotten no results. Make a note of those in case the student needs to petition later on, but also give them a little bit of space sometimes too.
I'll just add, because I agree with Abby and Sarah, the other area, because we do have an early alert, if a student is actually participating in classes, I can reach out to an instructor and ask the instructor if that student is participating, if the instructor has heard anything, or if you know that the student is in specific clubs or organizations and you know that the person who is in charge of that club or organization, it's perfectly okay to reach out and say, hey, have you heard from so-and-so? They aren't responding to me. Is there anything I should be concerned about? So I agree with Sarah. I think sometimes it's what is the priority, and the priority at times is the classwork. And so ensuring that we continue to be proactive and reach out and keep sending messages is the important piece.
Thank you all so much. There's another question that's kind of related to part of the answer that Sarah just gave. So I'll read this question now. What are some efficient and creative advising workshops and programming ideas for students, especially during the time of COVID? And we know that folks could be feeling isolation, some depression, frustration. what are some ways that advisors might be able to help in this space?
Well, I can't speak from a this is what we've done and it worked well perspective, but we are planning a series of workshops over the fall semester because my institution has gone 90% online remote learning for the fall. And so with the anticipation of especially new students, our brand new students coming to us, not being prepared in this environment, obviously. And so we are putting together a series of student success workshops that will be facilitated by our counseling offices on campus to hopefully help, again, anticipate some of the issues that we envision our students having or encountering, and hopefully being proactive about some of those.
So we specifically have a blog post where we have special topics, and one of the special topics that my colleagues created and has been very popular is being a parent while going to school, and really providing resources and information about how do you keep your children occupied while you're trying to study or participate in a class, a Zoom meeting, etc. And so blog posting has been something our students have really resonated with, especially right now. So that's something that we tend to go toward, as well as social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those avenues that we've used in order to just provide those type of messages. Any kind of streaming that the university has offered is advertised in those methods as well. So that's really what we've been doing, but it more so goes toward our student affairs division compared to our academic advising division.
Thank you. This kind of comes back to that student experience too, is another question that came in that I think you might be able to answer. Danielle asks, she states that she has several students who express a lack of confidence about their technology abilities, but feel embarrassed because young people are supposed to know this stuff, right? They're supposed to be technologically savvy. So what language have you used to help students develop their skills and maybe provide support and help them build their confidence? Has anybody experienced this kind of situation?
So I think we often think that students will understand how to engage with technology in a educationally relevant way. But there is a big difference between browsing Netflix or posting something on Instagram and using tools like PDF annotators and screen capture recordings and things like that. And so at Ohio State, actually, several years ago, they began a digital flagship program where all incoming first year students and now transfer students will get an iPad. And part of the programming around that project is to teach students what tools they have available. So that was a commitment by the institution to purchase those materials for students and to purchase site licenses for things like Evernote and some of the Adobe Suite and things like that students have access to on their devices. But it also takes a lot of training for your faculty and staff to make sure that they're including instructions on how they think assignments should be submitted or how students might best use their device to engage with their course. Most advisors at OSU teach an extended orientation type class. And so one of the things that a lot of the departments have done is create different types of assignments where maybe you have to submit an annotated PDF or you have to create a short video using a specific technology. And so teaching students how to do that is definitely important, makes them feel a little bit more confident. And if we can do that from the beginning of their experience, then certainly we hope that that'll carry over. But even something as simple as providing a quick link to your campus IT support. That might be one of those pieces of information that are hard to find otherwise. And so if you can embed that in a class that you're teaching or provide that information in a syllabus, that's certainly helpful as well.
Thank you very much for that, Sarah. It's very insightful as well. This has been an amazing panel. You all have so much experience and so much knowledge to share with the participants here. And we are coming up on the top of the hour, and I wonder if we can squeeze in just one more question. Well, I'm going to do it anyway, because I think this is important. So what are some best practices for hosting a virtual major affair? And I'll add to that, or any other event. I know Dawn mentioned maybe doing some group advising things, but I wonder if you have any ideas for practice for hosting events such as a major fair for the group. All right, well, maybe that wasn't the best question to, to ask, but I think we are out of time here. It is 1 p.m. and I want to thank you all once again for taking your time to share your knowledge and your experience with the participants. This was, as we noted at the beginning, the very first partnership between NODA and NACADA, and we are excited about this and hoping to continue these types of things in the future. So I want to thank once again Megan for helping me to put this together. This was the idea of NODA. We are very thrilled about this, and we are very excited to have this group of people who have been experienced in the world of orientation and in the world of advising to participate in our panel. And thank you to all of our participants. It was amazing to have 500 people log on, and almost everybody stayed on until the very end. So thanks once again for this, and I hope you all have a great week.